Here we have the all new DJI Mini 4 Pro, and as you can see on the table, we have a lot of drones to choose from. The Mini 3, Mini 3 Pro, Mini 4 Pro, the all new Air 3, as well as the MAVIC 3 Pro. Now, while I'm currently running out of breath to try and name them all, for the sake of this video, I do want to talk, of course, about the all new Mini 4 Pro, all the features it has on it that's a little bit different from some of these drones. And for you guys, when it comes down to comparisons, I do want to simplify things, because if you're getting into the space and you're looking at a new drone, you really want to see what is that best one for me. So I will be doing more of a comparison with this setup right here, the Mini 3, the Mini 4 Pro, which is the all new one, the Air 3, and a little bit of the MAVIC 3 Pro lineup. And the reason why I'm taking out the Mini 3 Pro for this initial comparison is because a lot of the specs of the Mini 3 Pro are very similar. One of the main differences here is that we do have those obstacle avoidance or omnidirectional obstacle avoidance on this one. So I will be taking this one out for this initial comparison. Now, with the new release of the Mini 4 Pro, I'm kind of putting them in these 4 different lanes because I think there's definitely a significant difference in between each one of these drones. And just at a really high level to start things off, if you're looking at just getting a basic drone and you're not looking at doing anything as far as tracking subjects, but you want really, really high quality, you can go with something like this, the Mini 3. Now, if you're looking at doing some follow me functions, you want the drone to follow you, you want it to follow you on a bike or a car, a boat, then you're gonna wanna jump into something with FocusTrack, which has that active track or the follow me functions. Then the Mini 3 Pro and above is where you're gonna wanna go into. And like I mentioned earlier, the Mini 3 Pro actually does have those follow me functions, so I'm not gonna just say, don't worry about the Mini 3 Pro. However, I think the Mini 4 Pro kind of takes up this lane when we're breaking these drones down. Next, we have the Air 3, and for me, I would say that the Air 3 pushes more on that video side because we do have dual lenses. We have the wide angle lens as well as a tele lens, which gives you a lot different look to your video. And if you are a video focused type of person or channel, or you do a lot of work that deals with video, you're gonna wanna move over here because of the fact that you have a lot more options, or a few more options with these tele lens and the wide angle lens. And finally over here, we have the MAVIC 3 Pro lineup, which has even more lenses. We have 3 lenses on this one. We have the wide, we have the medium, as well as the tele on the MAVIC 3. But one of the biggest differences here is that we do have an adjustable aperture on the MAVIC 3 Pro. So first we'll talk about is size and weight, and of course this is called a mini drone. So it does sit under that 250 gram mark, comes in at 249 grams for the Mini 4 Pro. The Mini 3 comes in about the same. Moving over to the Air 3, we're at 720 grams, and here the MAVIC 3 Pro, we are at 958 grams. So when it comes to weight, it really depends on where you live. A lot of places like the US here, if you have a drone that's under that 250 gram limit, then you don't necessarily have to register your drone with the FAA. And because we have those obstacle avoidance sensors, that is something, like I talked about, that you get with this drone. You have omnidirectional, so you have 360 omnidirectional sensing or obstacle avoidance sensing. So if you are flying this drone around different obstacles, a building, a tree, the camera or the vision sensors here will pick those up and ideally either stop your drone if you have it on brake, or you can do bypass where the drone will fly around those objects. The one thing I really like about the new tracking system on the Mini 4 Pro, even compared to these, I'm assuming or hoping that they're of course gonna do a software or firmware update on these so you guys all get the same ones. But we have an all new user interface on that bottom left of the corner when you activate tracking that allows you to actually move and draw a line of where you want the drone to follow you from. So if you initially have the drone following you from the back, and I said I want the drone actually to go around me, you can actually draw on that little interface where you want the drone to go. And you can actually determine if you want the drone to stay closer or further away just by swiping on this inner or outer circle. And once you do that, you'll see the drone instantly react to what you drew on that interface. Now, while the Mini 3 Pro also had obstacle avoidance in the front, back, and the bottom, the one thing this drone could not do is sense anything on the sides. And that's the reason why I'm saying that if you were to jump over to the mini drones and you're looking at optical avoidance, then you're gonna jump right over to the Mini 4 Pro because those vision sensors now can detect obstacles left to right. And this goes back to what I said earlier. It really comes down to peace of mind flying. When I was out there having this track me, whether I was either walking, running, on my bike, or even in my car, just feel a little bit more confident letting it go, letting it circle, knowing ideally it's gonna either dodge a tree or any issues or any obstacles that may come on the sides, of course, and the front and the rear. There's multiple times when I was testing this out on my bike and kind of going through areas with a lot of branches, a lot of trees, and seeing how it's gonna react, and it actually does react really well. I don't know if it's gonna track me through here, but we shall see. Holy cow! As well as when I had the drone, which I think is probably one of the hardest tracking to do, is when the drone's in front of the subject. I was riding my bike as well, having the drone follow me from the front. How close it's getting. Oh my gosh. Oh no. Holy cow. Oh no, 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 no. Go above, go above. Holy cow. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God, it freaking made it. Oh my God. And the reason why it's so hard for it to do is because once you turn on the bike, it's hard for the camera and the drone to determine what is the front of your vehicle or your bike. So what happens is that you'll turn and the drone will say, oh, let me catch up to you. And the drone is now going sideways in front of you, but you feel a little bit more comfortable because we do have those side obstacle avoidance sensors. With that said, let's jump back over to the comparison as far as the camera specs on these drones. When it comes down to sensor size, we do have the 1/1.3 inch CMOS sensor, same sensor size that we have here on the Mini 3. We have that on the Mini 4 Pro. We also have that on the Air 3, and then we have a larger sensor here on the MAVIC 3 Pro. The main camera on the MAVIC 3 Pro does have a larger 4/3 camera. It also has a 1/1.3 inch telecam as well as a 1/2 inch sensor telecam on the MAVIC 3. Lots of options here on the MAVIC 3, where here we do have the same sensor size, however, different technology of the sensor on these drones. The one feature that they did add here on the new active track, which I hope that they put it on these drones, which it would make sense for a firmware update, is that now you have the ability to adjust the distance away from your subject when you are tracking them. Now this does work if you're tracking something that's a little bit slower, so someone walking or maybe at a slower pace. The interface now, there is the thing called the trace wheel where it has two separate circles. There's an inner circle and an outer circle. Now it's great if you're using this and you're tracking a subject that's walking. If you want them to track a little bit closer to you, you can actually adjust it on the inner circle, because the inner circle will put the drone closer to the subject. And then you can actually make that trace and say, I want the drone to go to the right of a subject and go further away when the drone is going in front of you. So what you do is on that interface, you actually draw and trace a line and make it from the inner circle and then draw it all the way around to the outer circle in front of you. And what that does is it will also change the distance of tracking. So if you have it on the inner circle close and you say, I want the drone to go further away, you can have it track and trace and it'll go. And then now the drone will be further away from you if you drew on the outer circle. This is a feature I know a lot of people would really appreciate, because one of the things that was always kind of difficult is I want the drone to be further away from me. I don't want it so close to me. And now you have that ability with the new Mini 4 Pro. Note that if the tracking does sense a car or a boat, things that move fast, you're not going to have the inner and the outer circle. You're only going to have one. You're not going to have that ability to have the distance change so much, because the subject is also changing and moving so fast. Now, while the sensor size is the same on these three drones right here, the Air 3 does have that newer technology stack sensor. The sensor on here is an upgrade. Same sensor size, but the sensor itself is upgraded compared to the Mini 3. When it comes down to aperture, fixed 1.7 across the board here. And like I mentioned earlier, MAVIC 3 Pro does have an adjustable aperture on that main camera from an f2.8 all the way up to an f11. 4K 30 here on the Mini 3, 4K 60 on the Mini 4 Pro. We also have 4K 60 here on the Air 3. We have 4K 60 as well as 5.1K at 50 frames a second. When it comes down to slow motion, we don't really have much of a slow motion here on the Mini 3. We have 2.7 up to 60 frames. Here we have a nice bump up to 4K 100 frames a second, as well as the Air 3 4K 100. Really wish they would have given us like 4K 120, but that 4K 120 is of course reserved for the flagship drone. We have 4K 120 here on the Mavic 3 Pro. Next, if you're the type to do a lot of social media posts and you want to have that vertical shot, we do have true vertical shooting on these two drones. And the true vertical shooting means the actual camera itself is turning. So if you have that 4K video in horizontal, now you have 4K in vertical if you were to do that rotation on these two drones. So the Mini 3 and the Mini 4 Pro does have that true 4K vertical shooting. Where here on the Air 3, we have vertical option for you. The camera doesn't actually turn, but there is a crop option for you that will export out in 2.7. So there is a vertical option on the Air 3, a little bit lower resolution, as well as now with a recent firmware upgrade on the Mavic 3 Pro. Similar thing here, we have a frame guide inside of the app. However, it's still going to be shooting in the full resolution. So whether you're shooting at 5.1 or the 4K, it's still going to output in 4K, but it'll at least help you and show you a frame guide in the app to help you position your subject. Where here on the Air 3, it actually exports out a vertical format video. Next, let's talk about flight time. And I'm happy to say that flight time on all these drones recently have just been really good. I think once you start hitting that 30-minute flight time mark, actual flight time, not rated flight time, like rated needs to be upper 30s, 40s. Actual flight time, which all these drones pretty much can do, then I think we're at a pretty good place, because being up in the air for 30 plus minutes is actually a very, very long time. Now the drone with the longest flight time will be the Mini 3, mainly because of the fact that you're not dealing with sensors that we have here. Kind of sucks up some of that battery, I believe, which will give you 38 minutes of flight time with the standard lower capacity battery. And with that battery, you are able to stay under that 250 gram mark. But if you went with a higher capacity battery on the Mini 3, you can get up to 51 rated minutes, but you are going to be going over that 250 grams. And I'm happy to say that the Mini 3 and the Mini 3 Pro batteries will work here on the Mini 4. Now on the Mini 4 Pro, we do have the lower and the higher capacity battery, 34 minutes rated on the lower, 45 minutes on the higher capacity battery. There was one thing I did test out, which was interesting, is that the lower capacity battery though on the Mini 4 Pro is actually a little bit lighter than the lower capacity battery on the Mini 3. Because what I did is I took the lower capacity battery of the Mini 3, put it into the Mini 4, and I'm like, okay, this should be fine, right? It should work. However, there is a 2 to 3 gram difference now. So the lower capacity battery on the Mini 3 while it works, it actually is a little bit heavier. So it actually puts you over the 250 gram mark. Now when it comes to flight time, on the Air 3, we're at 46 rated minutes, which is a ton of time up in the air, and the Mavic 3 Pro rated 43 minutes. Next feature we're talking about is transmission, and that is that signal between your remote control and your drone. One of the most important things that you're gonna wanna feel most trust on with your drone. Great thing is about the Mini 4 Pro, just like these drones right here, it is using the OcuSync 04 technology, giving you up to 20 kilometers of range. We're here on the Mini 3, it's using the older OcuSync 02 technology, rated for about 10 kilometers in range. And the great thing is with the OcuSync 04 technology, and you pair it with something like this, which is the RC2 remote control, you have now these new antennas, very similar to what we have here, or same what we have here on the Air 3 option that you're able to use. And these are the two remote options that you're gonna have with your Mini 4 Pro. This is the RCN2 remote control. You will need to hook up something like your mobile phone here in order for you to see your camera. Now at the time of recording this, the DJI RC Pro, while I really hope that DJI comes out with a firmware update so it'll support the Air 3 as well as support the Mini 4 Pro, at this point, it currently does not support these drones. Next, we're talking about picture profiles, and the one thing I do like here, we do have a bump up from the Mini 3 Pro, which we only had the normal and decine-alike. We now have 10-bit D-Log-M, same that we have here on these drones. On the Mini 3, we only have a standard normal color profile. One new feature that was brought into the DJI Mini 4, which I really like, and this is something that I think a lot of people will appreciate, having the control over some of your picture settings. But you do now have the ability to adjust your sharpness as well as your noise reduction levels on the Mini 4 Pro. Now when it comes to intelligent flight modes, because of course we have all the sensing on here, you have the ability to do all the other stuff that these bigger drones can do too. So you do have the omnidirectional sensing, you have things like the FocusTrack, which allows you to do active track, point of interest, as well as spotlight. And if you guys don't know what spotlight is, I do have a separate video on that one. Probably one of my favorite features of these drones right here that have that FocusTrack ability. Spotlight is such a powerful tool to use, but we'll talk about that in a separate video. We also have things like master shots and of course quick shots, panoramic modes. We have hyperlapse, and we also have waypoints. Really, really cool. Again, another feature that they've brought down from the more advanced drones. We have waypoints, so you're able to now set a bunch of positions and camera angles up in the air and mark those and save them for later so you can continuously repeat the same type of flight. A new update that was recently brought over to the Mavic 3 Pro is that augmented reality return to home option. We also have that here on the Mini 4 Pro. I really like that feature just because it just gives you a visual, something to see as far as when I go back and return to home, I have to see this path now on where the drone is going to go. And not just that, when you're flying your drone, we have that augmented reality little home icon, which is really good because if you're out there flying and you lose orientation, you see that little H moving around your screen. So if you do have to return back to home, all you know to do is just turn the drone until it points back at the H and accelerate forward and you'll start going back home. When it comes down to photos, we do have 48 megapixel photos on these drones right here. We have 20 megapixels on the Mavic 3 Pro, but if you guys know photos in general, you don't necessarily always have to look at the megapixel. You have to look at the sensor size, sensor technology. The 20 megapixel on this thing is absolutely stunning because you also have a much larger of a sensor that's producing larger sensor, larger pixel size. You just have higher quality. Now when it comes down to panoramic modes for photos, you actually do have that on all the drones, including the DJI Mini 3. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're just looking for the best, most affordable drone that'll get you amazing types of video, photos, then go with the Mini 3 if you don't need the obstacle avoidance or the tracking features. Then if you want some of those more advanced features, like I said, the Mini 3 Pro was really, really good, but I think the Mini 4 Pro just takes it because of the fact the peace of mind now with omnidirectional sensing. We have those advanced features of the bigger ones and the tracking with that new trace option and the user interface for the distance, for close and further distance. Then moving over to the Air 3, and this is, I would say, if you do shoot any type of video or you might have video as your main focus, the ability to have that 70mm, that 3x option here on the Air 3 has been my absolute favorite feature of this drone. When you're shooting optically at those ranges now, those middle ranges, the depth of field, that compression you get on this drone is something that you know right away when you put them side by side. It's coming from something like this drone or the MAVIC 3 Pro. And of course, we have the MAVIC 3 Pro, the flagship camera of the bunch. Multiple options, lens option, camera options here on the very front. And of course, more importantly, the adjustable aperture for you to make those fine tunes while you're up in the air. Those are just my initial side-by-side comparisons of this lineup right here. I am gonna have a bunch of other videos that are gonna go into a little more detail and depth of why you might want to choose the Mini 3 Pro over the Mini 4, or what are some reasons why the Air 3 is just gonna be a better choice for you over the Mini 4 Pro. You guys aren't gonna wanna miss those videos, as well as my longer form video comparisons of these drones. If you guys wanna see that, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel.